We all know Willie Nelson for his voice, his bandana, and that calm smile. He gave us songs that felt like home. But behind the music was a man carrying more pain than most people ever saw. He made the world sing. Yet his own life was full of heartbreak, losing people he loved, watching friends pass, and dealing with health scares that nearly broke him. Even as he grew older, the hits kept coming. Not just in music, but in life. What happened to Willie Nelson in the end is something fans never saw coming. Join us as we look back at the heartbreaking journey of Willie Nelson and the final chapter of a country legend. Willie Nelson, the man who gave us timeless classics and became an icon of American music, is now battling demons that even his legendary spirit might not overcome, and the truth about what's happening to him right now will leave you stunned. But before we reveal this heartbreaking reality, let me take you through the incredible journey of a man who rose from absolute poverty to become a living legend, only to face tragedies that would crush most people. So stay until the end because Willie's current situation is more devastating than you can imagine. Our story begins in 1933 during the Great Depression, in the tiny town of Abbott, Texas, where Willie Hugh Nelson was born into poverty so severe that his parents abandoned him and his sister Bobby when he was just 6 months old, leaving them to be raised by their grandparents in a house without electricity or running water, and it was his grandfather who bought him his first guitar for $5. A fortune for their family at the time, though little did anyone know that this worn-out instrument would become the foundation of one of music's greatest careers. By age 7, Willie was already performing at local venues, earning whatever coins people would throw his way while his sister Bobby played piano, and together they formed a bond through music that would last their entire lives. But even as a child, Willie showed signs of the restless spirit that would both make him famous and cause him tremendous pain. The teenage Willie Nelson dropped out of high school, joined the Air Force, but was quickly discharged due to back problems that would plague him for decades, and what followed were years of grinding poverty and rejection when he moved to Nashville in the 1960s, believing his unique songwriting style would be embraced, only to face door after door slamming in his face as record executives told him his voice was too weird and his songs too unconventional, forcing him to take jobs as a janitor and encyclopedia salesman just to put food on the table. During this period of struggle, Willie wrote some of his most famous songs, including Crazy, but he had to sell it to Patsy Cline for just $50 because he desperately needed money for rent. Imagine creating a masterpiece and having to give it away just to survive another month. While his personal life was equally chaotic, with his first marriage falling apart and his second wife once sewing him up in bedsheets and beating him with a baseball bat during a fight, as Willie was drinking heavily, using drugs, and slowly spiraling into a darkness that threatened to consume him entirely. Everything changed when Willie made a radical decision to grow out his hair, stop trying to fit Nashville's mold, and move back to Texas, where the outlaw country movement was born with Willie as its unofficial leader alongside Waylon Jennings and Chris Christopherson. And the 1970s brought Willie the success he'd always dreamed of with albums like Red-Headed Stranger and Stardust, making him not just a country star but a cultural icon whose braids, bandana, and laid-back attitude became his trademark. Willie started his famous 4th of July picnics, appeared in movies, wrote books, and became one of the most recognizable figures in American entertainment as money finally flowed and he seemed to have conquered every obstacle life had thrown at him. But success brought its own demons through constant touring, pressure to maintain his image, and easy access to substances that began taking a toll as Willie was smoking marijuana daily, drinking heavily, and living a lifestyle that would have killed most people half his age. Just when Willie thought he had life figured out, tragedy struck in the most devastating way possible when in 1991, his son Billy committed suicide on Christmas Day, struggling with depression and feeling overshadowed by his famous father's success, taking his own life at age 33 and shattering Willie in ways that no amount of success could heal. As the man who had overcome poverty, rejection, and industry politics was powerless against the ultimate tragedy of losing a child. Willie blamed himself, wondering if his constant touring and focus on career had somehow failed his son, and the guilt ate at him as he threw himself deeper into his work, touring relentlessly as if he could outrun the pain. But those close to Willie noticed the change as the spark in his eyes had dimmed and the carefree spirit that defined him was replaced by a haunting sadness that he carried in every song. As if losing his son wasn't enough, Willie faced financial ruin in the 1990s when the IRS came after him claiming he owed $32 million in back taxes and penalties in what was the largest individual tax case in IRS history at the time, and the government seized everything including his homes, recording studio, gold records, and even personal belongings that were auctioned off to pay his debt, leaving Willie essentially broke at age 60 with overwhelming stress that made many wonder if this would finally be the blow that knocked down the Texas legend. Willie showed his resilience by releasing the IRS tapes, "Fooled by My Memories," with all proceeds going directly to the government while fans rallied around their hero, buying copies not just for the music but to help Willie pay off his debt. And though it took years, Willie eventually settled with the IRS for a fraction of what they claimed he owed. But the financial stress had taken its toll on his health and relationships, as the man who once seemed invincible was showing cracks in his armor. As Willie entered his 70s, decades of hard living began catching up with him as the back injury from his Air Force days, worsened by years of guitar playing and touring, required multiple surgeries while doctors told him he needed to slow down. But Willie refused to stop performing even after being diagnosed with emphysema, likely caused by decades of smoking, which made his breathing labored and performing physically challenging for the man who once seemed to have endless energy. The tragic pattern continued when Willie faced another devastating family loss as his longtime drummer and close friend Paul English, who had been with him for over 30 years and was like a brother, died in 2020, around the same time his sister Bobby, his lifelong musical partner and piano player for over 50 years, began showing signs of serious illness, leaving Willie increasingly isolated as he watched many contemporaries and friends pass away, causing the man who had always been surrounded by people to begin withdrawing and spending more time alone on his ranch in Texas. And now we come to the present day and the heartbreaking truth about Willie Nelson's current situation at 90 years old, still trying to tour but with his body finally betraying him as concert footage from recent performances shows a frail, sometimes confused Willie struggling to remember song lyrics and needing assistance to move around the stage, with his voice that once soared effortlessly now cracking and straining with every note while his emphysema has worsened significantly, requiring oxygen assistance between songs and sometimes during performances as the marijuana that once helped him relax now seems necessary just to manage his pain and breathing difficulties. Perhaps most heartbreaking of all, Willie seems to be in denial about his condition, continuing to book tour dates and insisting he's fine even as those around him watch him deteriorate, with his family staging interventions and begging him to retire and enjoy his remaining years. But Willie refuses to stop because friends report he's terrified of retirement, believing that if he stops moving and performing he'll die, making the music that saved him as a child both his lifeline and his prison, as he's trapped in a cycle where he's literally killing himself to stay alive. The tragic reality is that Willie Nelson, one of America's greatest musical treasures, is approaching the end of his remarkable journey in a way that's breaking the hearts of everyone who loves him, with recent performances being painful to watch as a shell of the vibrant performer who once commanded stages with effortless charm faces his greatest opponent of time itself. And those closest to Willie say he's still writing songs and believing he has more to give, but his body is giving out, his voice is fading, and the road that has been his home for over 60 years is becoming too difficult to travel, with the most heartbreaking part being that Willie seems to know this is the end but is choosing to go out the only way he knows how, with a guitar in his hands and music in his heart, even if it's killing him, showing us what it means to live and die for your art in a story that is ultimately one of incredible triumph shadowed by profound tragedy from an abandoned child in Depression era Texas to a global icon whose journey has been marked by both soaring victories and devastating losses that would have broken most people, and the fact that he's still fighting, still performing, still trying to give his fans one more song even as his body fails him is both inspiring and heartbreaking, as Willie Nelson isn't just ending his career but showing us the true cost of a life lived entirely for music.